Most people watched Shutter Island once, thought they understood the twist, and moved on. They didn't. Because the twist the movie hands you, the one that feels so satisfying, so complete, is a door. And almost nobody bothered to check what was behind it. Underneath the cinematography, underneath the dialogue, underneath the dreams. There is a second film hiding inside this one. A film most viewers never reach. And once you find it, once you actually see what Scorsese buried in plain sight, you will never be able to watch this movie the same way again. We are going all the way down today. If you love mind-bending movies like this, subscribe. This one will mess with your brain. So let's go back to 1954. A U.S. Marshal named Teddy Daniels arrives at Ashcliff Hospital on Shutter Island, a remote psychiatric facility for the criminally insane off the coast of Boston. He's there with his new partner, Chuck Ull, to investigate the disappearance of a patient named Rachel Solando, a woman who somehow vanished from a locked room with no shoes, no ID, no explanation. From the very first frame, something feels wrong. Not mystery wrong, not thriller wrong, reality wrong. The guards are too tense, the doctors are too calm. Teddy's been suffering from crippling migraines before he even stepped off the boat. And when certain patients get close enough to whisper, they say things that don't make sense yet. Write down the name. Write down the name. You probably filed all of that away as atmosphere, tone setting, mood. It isn't. Every single one of those details is the movie confessing the truth to you before you have the context to understand what you're hearing. Scorsese isn't building tension. He's leaving evidence. And on first watch, almost everyone walks right past it. Here's what most people understand by the end. Teddy Daniels is not real. His actual name is Andrew Laeddis, a former U.S. Marshal committed to Ashcliff after an unthinkable family tragedy. His wife Dolores struggled with severe mental illness. She drowned their 3 children. Andrew came home, found them, and in a moment of total devastation, killed her. And his mind, faced with a guilt that size, did the only thing powerful enough to survive it. It built a story where none of that was his fault. It invented a detective named Teddy Daniels, gave him a dead wife killed by a fictional fire, created a villain named Andrew Laeddis, an arsonist, a monster, someone external to hunt and blame. Edward Daniels and Andrew Laeddis are confirmed anagrams of each other. That's not theory, that's in the film. The entire investigation was an elaborate therapeutic roleplay, a last resort experiment designed by Dr. Colley to let Andrew's constructed persona play out completely until it collapsed under its own weight. Most people receive that, feel satisfied, close the tab. But here's what they missed. The twist isn't the destination. The twist is the key that unlocks the real film underneath. And that film is far darker, far more human, and far more carefully constructed than most people ever realized. Let's start with something the film hides in almost every scene: the medication. Every time Teddy refuses the pills, the food, the water offered by staff, his migraines intensify. His grip on reality starts fracturing. Strange images bleed through. The film frames this perfectly as paranoia. A man who suspects he's being chemically controlled by a corrupt institution. And you believed it. Because inside the conspiracy narrative Teddy is living, it makes complete sense. Now watch it again. Dr. Colley confirms in the film's final act that Andrew was on a specific psychiatric medication regimen before the experiment began. Going off it was precisely why his delusions destabilized so violently during the roleplay. The headaches aren't the medication attacking him. They're the truth attacking the lie. Every migraine is Andrew Laeddis trying to break through the walls of a fiction that is consuming enormous psychological energy to maintain. The medication wasn't suppressing him. It was the only thing keeping the constructed world coherent enough to function. And every time he refused it, the real man got one step closer to the surface. Now the dreams, because this is where the hidden film reveals itself most openly to anyone paying close enough attention. Most viewers read the dream sequences as backstory, painful trauma, World War II, Dachau, his dead wife, tragic history explaining who Teddy is. But watch what the dreams actually say. In one key sequence, Dolores sits with him as ash falls from her body like snow, and she tells him, directly in the film, that Andrew Laeddis is still on the island. Not Teddy. Andrew. She uses that name, his real name, in his own dream. The film is suggesting something extraordinarily precise here. Dolores isn't a ghost haunting her grieving husband. She's a projection constructed by Andrew's own subconscious. And even that projection is trying to break through the lie. He built her voice inside his own mind. And even there, even in the place he controls completely, the truth keeps leaking through. Every dream is a confession, not a memory. And the children appearing in the water, pale, reaching upward. That's not random nightmare imagery. The film implies those are his children, the ones who died, the ones his conscious mind cannot approach directly. His mind won't let him see their faces, but it won't let him forget them either. He's not being haunted, he's haunting himself. If this is the kind of deep dive analysis that makes you see films completely differently, click subscribe and the bell right now. And let's keep going, because it gets darker from here. Now let's talk about Chuck. Chuck Oll is Teddy's partner, his anchor throughout the entire investigation. The one presence on this island that feels completely trustworthy, because he came from outside, uncorrupted, loyal from the first moment. The film confirms that Chuck is actually Dr. Sheehan, Andrew Laeddis' real primary psychiatrist, a man who volunteered to play the partner role inside the therapeutic experiment, specifically because Andrew trusted him. Watch the gun scene. Chuck fumbles drawing his weapon in a way that a trained U.S. Marshal simply would not. Teddy notices it for exactly 1 second and moves on. The film plants this crack deliberately, and you moved on too. But here's the layer that deserves real attention. Chuck doesn't feel trustworthy to Teddy simply because he's a convincing actor. Consider what it means that Andrew's fractured mind, out of everyone on this island, kept gravitating toward this specific man, kept choosing him as the anchor, as the one safe presence in a world that felt hostile and conspiratorial at every turn. On some level, the film implies Andrew recognized the safety of his own doctor, even while burying that recognition under layers of fiction, even while calling him Chuck and treating him as a colleague. The safest person on this island, the one Andrew never once suspects, is the one person in the real world whose entire purpose is keeping Andrew safe. That is not a coincidence the film stumbled into. That is a choice. The lighthouse. 2 words. And somehow, the entire architecture of this film lives inside them. Teddy is obsessed with the lighthouse from the moment he arrives. He believes that's where the darkest secrets are kept. Government experiments, hidden patients, the truth the institution is protecting at all costs. But look at what the lighthouse actually is in Andrew's real world. It's the place where the truth lives, isolated, surrounded by water on every side, requiring you to cross dangerous, difficult terrain to reach. And the entire institution, everyone around him, seems to be working to keep him away from it. In Tednit's conspiracy narrative, that's evidence of corruption. In Andrew's psychological reality, that's his own mind, throwing up every obstacle it can manufacture, between him and the one room where he finally has to stop running. He built the maze. Every storm, every locked door, every suspicious guard, every bureaucratic wall, all of it is his own architecture, and he's the one who has to solve it. The lighthouse was never hiding a government secret, it was hiding him. Rachel Solando, the missing patient, the reason Teddy came to the island. She drowned her children, then constructed an elaborate delusion in which she was still living in her family home, her children still alive, reality completely rewritten to protect her from what she'd done. She believed it completely. She was unreachable inside it. Teddy is told all of this early in the film. He listens with professional distance, sympathy, clinical curiosity. He's listening to a description of himself. The film shows you Andrew's exact condition in another patient, before it shows you that Andrew has the same condition. You received the diagnosis before you knew the patient was the one delivering it. That is Scorsese and screenwriter Leta Kalogridis being extraordinarily precise about structure. Rachel Solando isn't a subplot. She isn't atmosphere. She is a mirror. And Teddy looks directly into her and sees nothing familiar. The ending. And here, more than anywhere, the line between fact and interpretation matters. So let's be exact. The film confirms Andrew had a genuine breakthrough, a real moment of clarity where he accepted who he was and what he had done. Dr. Colley and Dr. Sheehan are cautiously hopeful. Something real happened. Then Andrew is shown in the courtyard, calling himself Teddy again, asking Chuck when they're leaving. Regression. The experiment failed. The lobotomy is now the only remaining option. That's the surface reading. And then Andrew looks up at Sheehan and says, "Which would be worse, to live as a monster or to die as a good man?" The music stops. Sheehan's face changes, and the film never tells you what that means. One reading, Andrew genuinely regressed. That line is a flicker of accidental lucidity inside a collapsed mind. The other reading, and this is interpretation, not confirmation. Andrew remembers everything. He made a choice. He decided that living with full knowledge of what he did was a weight no human being should carry. And he chose the lobotomy, not because the therapy failed, but because it succeeded. And what it revealed was unbearable. He's not retreating into delusion. He's choosing to stop being Andrew Laeddis, consciously, deliberately, and saying goodbye to the one person who will understand exactly what that question meant. Scorsese has spoken about this ambiguity in interviews, stating that both readings are intentional and valid. The film was designed to hold that tension unresolved, which means that final question isn't a riddle with an answer. It's the most honest thing Andrew Laeddis ever said. So what is Shutter Island actually about? Not government conspiracy, not a puzzle box twist, not even a clinical portrait of dissociation. It's about what the human mind does with guilt it genuinely cannot survive. Andrew Laeddis experienced something unendurable, and his mind did the only thing powerful enough to protect him from it. It built a story where he was the hero, where the tragedy happened to him rather than because of him, where the guilty man was someone else, external, huntable, punishable. He constructed a world where grief was permitted and guilt was impossible. That is the hidden film inside Shutter Island. Not a plot mechanic, not a clever trick, a human truth. That the mind's capacity for self-protection is so complete, so creative, so absolute that it will construct an entirely alternate existence rather than face the one moment it cannot survive. One final thing. The title. A shutter is what closes over a lens, what blocks the light from entering. The island, the conspiracy, the investigation, the storms. Every scene Teddy experiences, it's all a shutter, a mechanism, built by one man's mind to block a single image he cannot look at directly. The lighthouse is the lens. The whole film is the agonizing, inevitable moment before the shutter finally opens. You didn't watch a detective story with a twist ending. You watched a man spend 2 hours trying not to remember who he is. And now that you know, every scene is a different film. Every migraine is a confession. Every dream is a warning. Every locked door is his own hand holding it shut. Watch it again. You'll see it all now. And if this changed how you see Shutter Island, imagine what we do to your other favorite films. Subscribe. Because next week, we're going somewhere you are completely unprepared for. The comment I want to see right now. Did you think Andrew chose the lobotomy deliberately? Or did he genuinely regress? Drop it below. See you next week.